Welcome to another episode of the Middle Order Cricket Podcast. We are joined by Khizar Ali, Farrakh, Ashraf, and Qasim Ahmed today, and we're going to discuss the first week of the PSL 2021. Guys, we're going to jump straight in. Qasim, nice of you to join us. Give me a quick overview. Do you think the PSL week one has gone, and more specifically, what the standard of the competition has been so far?
I think the standard's been fairly decent given the previous years gone by. However, there has been a few disappointments for me, particularly the lack of quality in the overseas players. I was looking at some statistic, and you'll only find 2 overseas batsmen, for instance, in the top 10 of the runs scored, and only 1 overseas bowler in the top 10. So in that sense, it's been kind of disappointing for me. I really look at strategically what the PSL is doing for Pakistan cricket, and therefore I want to see these overseas players coming in and making an improvement to how we play our cricket. And if they're not doing that, is there really a place for these? I would say most of them are past their time, really, playing in this league. But yeah, I'd like to see more of these guys stepping up to the plate, really, to really improve the gaming in the T20s at the moment. But otherwise, I think it's been a fairly decent standard.
Farrakh, as Qasim has mentioned, the competition, but for the most part, it's the same overseas players that have been playing in the competition over the last couple of years. Any specific reason they're struggling this year?
Well, I guess it's another year older, isn't it? That's going to be a factor with some of these guys are at the kind of tail end. I mean, they're kind of journeymen now. Some of these guys, they play league to league, and I think that has some impact on it. Getting used to the conditions. I know they've been playing, but it's been Dubai, then it's been Pakistan, then the pandemic got in the way, and now they're playing Karachi all the games. But yeah, I think with the 2 batsmen, as Qasim mentioned, I think it's just Vince and Hales, isn't it, that are in the top 10. Other than that, I would say Dunk and Wisa look good. And there's been a mix. I mean, Shim Rashid Khan had to go back. I think obviously he would have liked to have a good tournament, but he's somebody who's current. I think it is just the age factor. Some of these guys are not at their best, and maybe where they're positioned in teams means they can't really showcase their full skill set yet. But in terms of the standard, I've been able to watch most of the games, and I think it is good. I've enjoyed it. I think it's been a good mix of youth, really exciting, and actually some dependable people there as well, with the likes of Hafiz, Rizwan. But I guess from my perspective, the fielding hasn't been up to the mark. And I guess you'll touch upon this later, but every team that's chasing is winning, and I've got some kind of thoughts around that, and I think that might be linked to maybe the overall team balance and squads that we have across the teams.
Thank you. Because one of the potential reasons why the overseas players are maybe not doing so well is not many of them have been brought in as specialist bowlers or batsmen. Quite a lot of them are what you would call bit part players, maybe in for a few runs and a few overs here and there. Do you think that's one of the reasons?
Yeah, I think it can be. I think T20 is hard. Sometimes you're coming in with a few overs to bat, or you're bowling, and as we saw in the last couple of games, you've got inside edges going, your catches being dropped. But there are specialist batsmen there, and there are specialist bowlers. I think we're talking a lot about, we reflect on the standard of maybe these guys, but like Hales, Vince, these guys are, knocking on the door of possibly the best T20 team in the world just now. And these are quality players. And I think what we've got to acknowledge is that they're up against some really good bowling units. And a lot of independent observers have said that this is possibly the best standard of bowling in any T20 league in the world. So, you've got to acknowledge that they're facing some quality bowling. The fielding, as Gash, the $1 million fan, mentioned.
Gash?
We've got, is it not Gash? Gash, the $1 million fan?
I think for those of you, another over-the-hill person on this panel, I think.
Sorry, I thought it was Gash, the $1 million fan. If you like your men in tights and leotard, you've got to check out Farrakh's other podcast. I hear it's very good. But yeah, as he mentioned, the standard of fielding, but you've got to look at, it's not, you would automatically assume it's Pakistani fielder standard of fielding. You've got the likes of Hales, who's, a really good fielder. who dropped a number of catches. So it's definitely an issue. There is an issue with the standard of fielding. You've got grounds, you've got people, other leagues where, you've got amazing catches being taken on the boundary, but this tournament's just warming up. We just had the best game where we had the best team defeat the worst team, and Lahore came out on top. It's just warming up. We've got to wait for it. We've got to give it another week or so until we get into real get the meat on the bones, because the first few games were a bit lackluster. And I know there's people are saying you win the toss, you win the game, but there's been some good games of late.
Guys, add something just on that. Sorry, just on terms of
sure.
Maybe there's a attitude mix here as well. So I think some of these foreign players, you can see they want to perform well. So here was an example of that. Vince, you see it that they want to perform. Whereas we see some other guys, and I'd like to see more urgency and taken a bit more seriously. I mean, Summit was a great example of that yesterday. You're getting walloped and he's smiling and sometimes it's a wry smile, right? But I think there's some of that. And as we do go through the tournament, as you say,
nervousness in that smile, but he was under pressure. But you're right. I think it's got to be. Remember, you've also got to remember this is the second best paying league in the world. So it's not that we're doing anything. We're discouraging people from coming. We're addressing the safety issues. We're offering them good money. There's excellent prize money for game prizes as well as tournament prizes. So we're wanting to attract the best players. But as you mentioned, Farrakh, I think a lot of it has got to come down to attitude. And it's fine when you've got current players. We've got a lot of young players who are maybe, making their debut in terms of leagues in this PSL. And we've got journeymen, as you mentioned, at the end of their careers, but they've got to be up for it. You're right. Yes. They've got to want to perform.
Khizar, would you then say this is like almost a stepping stone for the future seasons where we are then enticing better players to come to our league? I mean, I was looking at, could you guys tell me who the top ranked T20 batsman is in the league right now that we have attracted as an overseas? And I would give you money if you can guess.
As in international rankings?
Yep.
I'm going to go with Colin Ingram.
Okay.
Probably.
I don't think Vince would be up there, but he's played a few. No.
So the answer is Sterling from Ireland, who's ranked number 19. So that's the best batsman that we've attracted, barring, of course, our own Babar Azam, who's in the top 10.
Yeah.
But that's my biggest criticism, is that we have not been able to attract the quality kind of players to come in and really push our batsmen further forward.
It's still a young league in that respect, and we had a couple of issues. We had to overcome safety concerns for players. We played in Dubai initially, and we had the likes of Watson, some of the bigger players who maybe left the stage, but we are getting the guys who are coming to cash the paychecks at the end of their careers. All we can really do is what we're doing, which is a good standard of cricket and offering them good money. That's all I think the PCB can do.
And I would say that
we don't get a window.
Well, we're never going to get a window, so that's be we're never going to get a window because nobody wants to give the window.
England's playing right now, so we can't take those players. You've got other series going, players coming. The IPL gains from the fact that they get a window, so that's when the best players go. If you've got something else,
the BCCI run cricket. The BCCI and Waqas Hussain run cricket.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, as a result of me running cricket, you're not going to get a window. So we're going to move on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to say the fact that the overseas players haven't been performing as actually spotlight on the Pakistan players who have been performing really well. So it's not all bad. We've had some top performances from our own.
I think it's been, sorry, just to reiterate, I think it's been a good tournament so far. It's just to your point, it's not just about attracting. Those guys are engaged doing other things. So we're behind the eight ball.
So moving on, one of the key patterns that we've all seen in all of these games is the fact that for some reason, the chasing team has won every single game of this edition of the PSL. Qasim, your thoughts first of all. Why is it that this is happening?
I have no thoughts on why it's happening. However, I have thoughts on the fact that it's great because Pakistan are notorious for not being able to chase during international games. This is a fantastic opportunity for these guys to learn how we can chase a big score down. We saw, is it Wisa, if I'm pronouncing his name right? He chased a score down. These guys are going to be looking at these guys and saying, if these guys are capable of going in there and doing that, we are capable of going in and doing that. So I'll leave it up to the rest of the guys to decide why it's happening. However, for whatever is happening, I think it's a great thing that is happening.
Farrakh, you said you had a few reasons why you think this is happening.
Yeah, so you obviously the technical specialist yourself in Khizar, but I guess you've not seen much do factor. I think, there's been so many games where teams should have scored 220, 215, and then they don't get to that stage. And is it because maybe the middle orders, the lower middle orders, don't have the firepower? So they have, they get a base, lose a few quick wickets, and a lot of these teams don't have that really strong hitter at the bottom end, which gets them to 220, which makes it competitive because I think the pitches are really good, and therefore 190 is not really been a challenge. I mean, teams haven't really broke a sweat doing that. Even yesterday, when Lahore were 3 down, and you're thinking, oh, is there going to be a wobble here, and we're going to get a reversal? In the end, you get one partnership, and they coasted it. So I don't know if it's a combination of just I don't really see much do factor in there, but maybe it's just the teams haven't been good at setting a total. Whereas they've been able to kind of plan out in terms of coaching and things how to chase the total, and it'll be interesting if that happens in Lahore as well when we move there. So I don't know if it's a Karachi thing. I guess we'll find out.
Khizar, obviously, it's always notoriously difficult on a good batting pitch to figure out what a good score is that won't be chased down. Do you think that's just really the main issue here? People are batting well, but they're not sure what score to go for.
I think what we've also got to recognise is there's been some really good death bowling at times as well, or kind of middle over bowling as well. We've had situations like the likes of Wahab Riaz got absolutely tonked for his most expensive spell, came back the next day and bowled his best spell in the PSL, 2 days apart. And I think we've got to acknowledge the good bowling as well. And as you mentioned, Wisa's done it a number of times for Lahore. He has about 6 or 7 innings over a strike rate of over 200. Low runs, as in, he's only got 20 to 40 kind of runs, but that's what you need for someone coming in at that stage. We've got Haider Ali showing signs of doing something similar, and he has done in the tournament so far. So I think we've got to acknowledge the bowling that's restricting them. So a lot of these, as Farrakh mentioned, a lot of these first inning scores were looking like 220. They managed to restrict them to the 190s. And then even you might say, like Lahore, for example, yesterday coasted it. They needed 35 runs off 2 overs, and they got 20 odds off Mohammad Amir's penultimate over. So there's been some really good plays in there, whether it's with the ball or with the bat. Lahore will change. Dew will be a factor in Lahore. The side bowling second, it might become more in favour of winning the toss in that case. It's how they manage the toss. How they manage the dew, and the toss will come into it. But Lahore will change a bit. What I would like to see is the boundaries pushed out a little bit. We've had some big hits. There's been guys hitting it out of the park, 100-meter hits. But it's those 65, 68, 70-meter ones where you're going to get people tested on the boundary. The key thing there is that we're all keeping an eye on this with the Pakistan team, and also who we're going to play in the World Cup. We've got to remember what we're going to be playing on in the World Cup. Indians like their boundary small, so the vegans can hit it over the boundary. But I think keeping that in mind, we've got to look at the size of the boundaries that we're hitting, and try and replicate that in this tournament for that purpose.
That's only the first part of our Week 1 PSL 2021 review. Join us for the second part, also on YouTube and Spotify.